Chapter 1. Ash beneath twin suns where the chosen one first cried, long before the stars fell into war, before the Republic rotted from within, before Jedi temples became graves. There was a desert, and in that desert there was a child. The suns rose cruelly above Tatooine, unblinking, unfeeling. They scorched the bones of the land, baking sand into glass, breath into steam. But beneath their judgment, in a hovel of rusted metal and grief-worn walls, a scream echoed for the first time. He was born not of father, nor prophesy yet both. The woman called Shmi held him close, her face carved from exhaustion, her eyes hollow with wonder. She said his name, Anakin, a name that meant little then, less than a whisper, yet would one day cause the stars to tremble. He did not cry like other children. His voice broke the silence like a blade. The Force coiled around him, curious, confused. It pressed against him, and he pressed back. Even the midwife droid flickered. Unusual, it said. But no one listened, for on this world, nothing unusual survived for long. Watto owned them. Flesh for credits, mother and son, tools to mend engines, sweep junkyards, breathe when told, and silence when commanded. Chains were welded not to their limbs, but their spirit. Yet Anakin dreamed, in sleep he built. Wires, servos, fragments of discarded thought. He made them move. He crafted C-3PO from rust and curiosity, a thing of clanking politeness, stitched together with love. He raced pods no other child could drive. He outran grown men through desert flame. He spoke to the stars without knowing their names. Some said he was lucky. Others said cursed. But beneath the surface, the Force whispered to itself, "What is this thing, born of no father, made of dust and will?" It had no answer. It merely watched. Then one day, the pattern broke. A ship fell from the sky, not a slaver's freighter, nor a spice runner's ghost. A queen's vessel, scorched by pursuit. Inside it rode a Jedi tall, unbending, yet weathered, Qui-Gon Jinn. He was not like the others. He listened when others dismissed. He felt when others doubted. He looked at the boy and did not see a slave. He saw a convergence. Anakin stared back with the boldness of one who had never known choice. "Are you a Jedi?" he asked. Qui-Gon nodded. The boy smiled, not with awe, but familiarity, as if he'd met him before in a dream, or 1,000 dreams. Tests were done, blood was drawn. The Jedi's gaze deepened with each passing second. The numbers were wrong, impossible, unnatural. MIDI CHLORIAN. As sliving whispers of the Force swarmed the child's veins like 1,000 voices crying out for meaning. "Even Master Yoda doesn't have a count that high," Obi-Wan said. And still, the desert sun glared down. Qui-Gon called it destiny. The Council would later call it danger, but neither name was true. It was a wound, a rupture in the fabric of the Force itself. And it had taken the shape of a child. The Sith long thought extinct, stirred in silence. Darth Sidious listened from afar, cloaked as a politician, as a phantom. He felt the tremor, the birth, the imbalance. He smiled beneath his many faces. And the Force began to tilt. Anakin's freedom was gambled in a padras, a blur of engines, fire and death. He flew as if born in air, not sand. Victory came not by luck, but will, violent, pure, unrelenting. He was free, but not his mother. She smiled for him, hiding her breaking heart. "Don't look back," she said. "Now be brave, and don't look back." He did not cry, not then. But the wound inside him widened. A ship rose. The desert shrank beneath him. Twin suns sank beyond the curve of the world. He sat beside Qui-Gon, small in frame, immense in gravity. The Jedi said little. The stars whispered much. In the dark, Anakin spoke. "I miss her," the Jedi answered. "Attachment leads to fear." The boy nodded. He did not understand. And far beyond, in a place where time twists and futures blur, the prophecy trembled. A chosen one shall come, born of no father, to bring balance to the Force. But prophecies are seeds, not scripts, and seeds, once planted, do not always bloom as one expects. The boy closed his eyes and dreamed of fire. The Force listened and forgot how to sleep, and thus began the slow unraveling. Chapter 2: The Echoes. Of mortality the boy leaves. The chain remains. He left the world of dust behind, but the dust did not leave him. Anakin Skywalker, no longer a slave, and yet still bound. The chain had changed shape, not iron now, but fear. The boy's freedom was etched in absence, a mother's arms left behind on a world that never forgave the weak. The stars sang differently now. Their light was colder, the galaxy wider. He sat alone in the Jedi vessel, watching fire lines streak the void, his legs too short for the robes they gave him. He was quiet, but inside, the storm brewed. Obi-Wan watched from a distance, newly burdened. Qui-Gon, his master, had given him a final command: train the boy. It was not a suggestion, it was a dying breath, for Qui-Gon was gone, slain by a phantom with a burning blade and eyes like bleeding suns. Darth Maul, a Sith, real, not legend. And with his death, the Order trembled. The Council convened in silence, speaking behind ancient walls, weighed by doubt. The Sith had returned. The balance was broken, and in the center of the breach stood a child whose blood sang in unnatural tones. Yoda narrowed his gaze. Much fear in him, I sense. Mace Windu, cautious and righteous, nodded. Dangerous he is. Yet Obi-Wan, grief-hardened and loyal, defended the will of his master. I will train him, he said, without the Council's blessing, if I must. The Jedi did not forbid it. They merely looked away, allowing what they could not embrace. And so Anakin, only 9 years of age, was taken into the sacred halls of Coruscant. He was given a braid, a room, a lightsaber hilt, to long for his palm, and silence. The temple was ancient, its walls thick with the ghosts of history. Jedi trained in chorus, moving like flowing water. They spoke of peace, of detachment, of clarity, but Anakin was fire. He asked questions that had no place on their tongues. Why can't we love? Why must I let go of her? When will I see my mother again? The answers were always the same: serenity, patience, release. But serenity is a language of the unbroken. Anakin's dreams were not serene. He began to see visions of sand-swallowing footsteps, of chains on wrists that no longer bled, yet never vanished, of his mother, alone, weeping, reaching through storm and shadow. The Council spoke in whispers. The Chosen One, already fractured. They meditated in circles, trying to read the prophecy as if it was scripture rather than omen. But prophecies do not explain. They only wait. Obi-Wan tried to mold the boy. He taught him form, code, technique, but he was not Qui-Gon. He did not understand that love could not be erased, only buried, and what is buried, fest. In quiet corners, Anakin began to resent the stillness around him. His gifts outpaced the other initiates. He could move objects no one else could lift. He could feel emotions before they were spoken, and in secret he began to bend the Force, not to serve it, but to shape it. The Jedi noticed. They said he was progressing. They did not say they were afraid. In the shadows, a darker voice stirred. Darth Sidious watched through veils and disguises, through cameras and spies. The boy was growing. The prophecy was fermenting. The wound in the Force widened, and the Sith prepared. Years passed. Anakin aged. His braid lengthened. His body grew tall, wiry with power, carved from tension. He learned the saber, learned the meditations, learned the oaths, but he did not learn to let go. His mother haunted him. Every mission, every night, every moment of pause, she called from the sands of his memory. Was she safe? Was she still bound? Was she dead? And the Jedi forbade him from finding out. Attachment leads to fear, they said, but Anakin already feared. Fear was his breath, so he hid. He hid his heart behind discipline. He spoke like a Jedi, fought like a Jedi, dressed like a Jedi, and dreamed like a son. There were moments of calm, fleeting lights in the encroaching dark. One day, on a world drowning in color, he met her again, Padmam, senator, queen once, a ghost from Tatooine, grown now and radiant. Their reunion was formal, but electric. She remembered him. He had never forgotten her. She smiled. He stumbled over words. And something ancient shifted, not in the Force, but in him. She was beauty without command, memory without chains. In her presence, he was no longer the chosen one. He was just Anakin, and that was enough to unravel him. The Jedi did not see it, or chose not to. Their blindness was tradition, their arrogance, discipline, their silence, consent, and still, the Force screamed in silence. The prophecy continued to whisper. A chosen one, born of no father, shall bring balance. But balance is not peace. Balance is the knife edge between shadow and flame. And in the boy's heart, both had begun to bloom. He stood on the edge of greatness and ruin. He loved, he feared, he obeyed. He lied, he trained by day and dreamed by night. And somewhere, deep within the chasm of the Force, the future split into 1,000 paths. All of them bled. Chapter 3, The Council of Hollow. Lightful certainty in marble halls in towers of white stone and crystal air, the Jedi Council sat. They spoke of peace. They meditated on war. They named balance, yet walked upon crumbling paths. The temple on Coruscant was a monument to stillness. Its columns rose like ancient trees. Its archives breathed with 10,000 years of memory. But the roots were withered. Its walls hummed with unease. Shadows gathered, not in the corners, but in the hearts of those sworn to the light. And in their midst stood the boy who had no place. Anakin Skywalker, now Padawan of Obi-Wan Kenobi, trained with discipline but carried fire behind his eyes. He listened but did not believe. He obeyed but did not trust. He bowed but did not kneel. They called him dangerous. They called him gifted. Some called him doomed, but none called him understood. He moved among them like a storm among clouds. Always noticed, never grasped. He sparred with masters, and they winced at the speed of his blade. He questioned doctrine, and silence answered. He grew in power, but not in peace. The council watched. Yoda watched with narrowed spirit. Windu watched with rigid eyes. They debated prophecy in whispers. Was this the chosen one? Was this the balance or the end? But they dared not answer aloud, for the Sith had returned, Darth Maul's death had proven the ancient darkness was not extinguished, only hidden as embers beneath ash. And if one Sith walked again in flesh, another always waited behind him, only to dot no more, no less. They did not know the face. They did not see it in the Senate. They did not feel it in the Chancellor's smile. For the darkness that deceives often wears the face of order, and so the Jedi turned inward. They built stronger walls. They held longer councils. They taught their initiates to fear, and in doing so, they stepped away from the Force, the living Force. The breath of the galaxy no longer sang in their temples. It whispered elsewhere now, in hidden hollows, in lost tombs, in the dreams of a boy who could not forget. Anakin felt it. He did not speak of it, not yet. But he felt it, a cold presence at the edge of vision, a current pulling him when he meditated, a hand he could not see guiding him through moments of danger, glory, confusion. It was not always the Jedi way. It was not always light, but it worked. Obi-Wan trained him with the caution of a man still learning. He loved Anakin, but he was not blind. He sensed the fury, the hunger, the desperation behind his Padawan's calm. "You must trust the Council," he said. Anakin answered, "Do they trust me?" And Obi-Wan had no answer. Trust is the first thread to snap in the shadows beyond the temple. Darth Sidious moved like oil beneath glass, still a mask, still a man called Palpatine. He rose in power, wrapped in civility, adored by the Senate. His words were gentle, his eyes kind, but beneath the words, rot. He watched Anakin through layers of theater, a boy, a weapon, a prophecy, a wound. All things and none of them. Real. He sent messages. Subtle influence, praise, honor, appointments. He told the boy what the Jedi would not. You are special. You are destined. They do not understand you. But I do. Anakin listened. He did not obey, not yet. But the seed was planted, and meanwhile, the Jedi debated the shape of the storm while already beneath it. One day, in the high tower of the council, Anakin was summoned, not to be punished, not to be praised, but to be tested. He stood in the center of the room, the circle of masters radiating silence. "You have grown strong," said Mace Windu. "Too strong, perhaps." Yoda's ears tilted forward. "Fear still I sense. Hidden, buried, not gone." Anakin's voice was cold. "I fear for others. Is that wrong?" "No," said Ki-Adi-Mundi. "But fear leads to darkness if left to fester." Anakin said nothing. Inside, he burned. They spoke to him like he was a threat wrapped in skin. They wanted him to be calm, but only on their terms. They wanted him to forget, but only what made them uncomfortable. They wanted him to serve, without ever belonging, and above them all, prophecy loomed. A child born of no father, a being of convergence, one who would bring balance, but balance was never defined. Was it peace? Was it justice? Or was it fire, burning both sides until none remained? They did not know. And so they built walls of marble and called it wisdom. They declared the Force a doctrine and called it order. They shaped the future with rules and hoped the past would not scream, but Anakin remembered everything. The cries of slaves, the breath of his mother, the fire of the Padras, the weight of a lightsaber, humming with decisions no child should make. He remembered Padme's smile. He remembered his own name spoken like a promise, not a prophecy, and he wondered if the Jedi feared him, or what he reminded them of, that the light, when rigid, casts long shadows. He left the chamber without bowing, and they let him go, not out of trust, but out of fear. Later, Obi-Wan would scold him. Later, Yoda would meditate for hours and find no peace, and in the chambers of politics, Palpatine would call for Anakin to dine and smile across the table with the warmth of a mentor. While thinking like a spider, the galaxy shifted in silence, and the wound in the Force deepened. The holocron awakens again. Now begins the season of fire, where peace is buried beneath armor and Jedi become soldiers. Chapter 4: The War That Fed the Flame Clones March. Hearts Fracture War was never the Jedi way, and yet they led it. The stars began to bleed, not in sudden violence, but in slow corrosion. 1,000 systems, once loyal to the Republic, fractured. The Separatists rose, their voices laced with promise and poison. Droids marched without mercy, worlds chose sides. Peace cracked, and from the smoke of political deception, the Clone Wars were born. The Grand Army of the Republic, bred in secret, emerged ready. Clones' faces molded from a single man, engineered for obedience, uniform in breath, diverse only in death. A gift from Camino. A question no one asked: who commissioned this army? The answer was hidden. The trap had begun to close. The Jedi were called not to guard, but to lead. Generals, commanders, symbols of hope with lightsabers raised high above. Soldiers bred for obedience. They did not resist. They took command. They waged battle, and with every order given, they stepped further from what they were sworn to be. The code twisted, the robes stained, and Anakin Skywalker rose like fire among them. He did not question the war, not as they did. He understood conflict. He thrived in it. As a general, he became legend. His tactics were ruthless, his instincts flawless. His presence lifted entire legions. His blade sang louder than commands. The clones called him Sky Guy in secret to them. He was a brother, not a master. He led from the front. He bled with them. But war carves more than victory. It etches silence in the soul. Padma watched from afar. Senator, wife in secret, her love remained, but her eyes darkened. Anakin returned from battles thinner in spirit, heavier in gaze. He spoke of nightmares, of failure, of saving lives, but, losing pieces of himself, she reached for him. He clung to her, but neither knew how to mend the quiet between them. Obi-Wan saw the change, his own blade dulled with the weight of command. He counseled Anakin as best he could. "Don't lose yourself," he said. Anakin replied, "I was lost the day I left." Her, he meant his mother. Still, he dreamed of her. Chains, sand, screams. He asked the council for leave to see her, to check on her. They denied him. Attachment, clouds, judgment, they said. Let go, they said. So he obeyed with his words, but not with his soul. He remained their general. He fought on worlds whose names he forgot. He defended cities that would fall again. He watched clones die under his command, each with a name, a joke, a scar, and he felt their deaths like bruises he could never explain. The Jedi taught him to find peace through detachment, but the galaxy was no longer at peace, and detachment was starting to feel like death. Then came the mission that broke the silence, a whisper from Tatooine. His mother was missing, taken. Anakin disobeyed. He left the battlefield. He returned to the dust. Palmed followed. despite the war. They landed where it all began, Mos Espa, the edge of despair. The air was the same, dry, ancient, unforgiving. He searched, he asked, he threatened, and finally, he found her, too late, in a Tuscan camp, beneath a crude cage. She lay dying, bruised, broken. Her eyes opened one last time. "You came," she said, and then she was gone. Something in him broke. The force screamed. The sand turned red. He did not remember killing them. Not one, but all. The warriors, the women, the young, the old. His blade did not stop. His breath did not stop. His grief had become a weapon. And when it ended, silence. He fell to his knees. Podden found him. Trembling. "They're dead," he whispered. "All of them." He did not lie. She did not run. She should have. Later, he would confess to Obi-Wan. The Jedi did not reprimand. They did not punish. They simply distanced. It was not justice. It was shame. The council began to fear him openly. They watched his rise. They felt his power. They saw his wound. And Palpatine, Sidious, saw opportunity. The Chancellor grew ever closer. He praised Anakin in public, gave him assignments above his rank, invited him to private chambers, spoke to him not as subordinate, but as heir. "You are the greatest of them," Palpatine said once. If only they could see it. And Anakin, torn between duty and fury, began to believe him. He began to see the council as blind. He began to question their wars, their code, their authority. He began to feel that he was meant for more. The chosen one, they had said it once, but they no longer spoke. The name, they had no answers. No comfort, only silence, only rules, only walls, and the Force, oh. The Force began to swirl around him like a vortex without center. He was still a Jedi, but not truly. He was still a servant of the Republic, but not fully. He was still himself, but only barely. That the war consumed more worlds. More names fell, more clones bled, and Anakin stood at the edge of every battlefield. Blade drawn, face calm, heart screaming. They called him hero, but heroes are only myths, wrapped around wounds, and no one asked what happened to the wound. Beneath the legend, not yet, not until the fire would return and consume them all. Then the holocron deepens. The veil between dream and vision begins to tear, and love becomes a fear greater than death. Chapter 5. Dreams of drowning stars, premonitions of fire, and a crying womb. He began to see it in sleep. Not visions of war, those he knew too well, not memories of fire, or sand, or sabers clashing in void-lit halls. No. He saw her Padme crying out in pain, reaching for something or someone through veils of agony, her body frail, her hands trembling, her breath growing thin, and then ... silence. Every night the same dream, every night the same death. And when he awoke, drenched in sweat beneath a Jedi's robes or a general's armor, he knew it was not just a dream. The Force was warning him, or tormenting him. He told no one at first, not even Padme, but the dread grew. She was pregnant now, with their secret, their love hidden behind closed chambers and false reports. A marriage forbidden, yet unbroken. A child unborn, yet already feared. He kissed her belly and tried to smile, but death stood beside them. She saw it in his eyes. "What's wrong?" He shook his head. "Nothing." But he lied, for Jedi are taught to let go, and Anakin Skywalker could not. He loved her more than breath, more than the code, more than the Force itself. And in that love, he was already lost. He brought his visions to the temple, to Master Yoda. He spoke with shaking voice, not naming her, only the shape of the fear. She's dying in childbirth. I see it, over and over. I can't stop it. Yoda listened with quiet eyes, then said, "Careful you must be. The fear of loss is a path to the dark side." Anakin's voice cracked. "I won't let her die." Yoda's reply came like stone. "Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose." Anakin said nothing, because in his soul the answer had already bloomed. No, he would not let go. Not again. He had let go of his mother, and she died in chains. He would not let go of Padme, not for the Jedi, not for the code, not for peace. He began to search, not for peace, but for power. Secretly, dangerously, ancient texts, forbidden scrolls, whispers from the outer archives. The Jedi would not help him, so he would find another way. And in the shadows, the voice returned, not from the Force, but from the throne at the galaxy's heart. Palpatine, always kind, always waiting. "You're troubled," he said one day, walking the red-lined halls of the Senate. Anakin nodded. I've seen something, someone I care about. She's going to die." Palpatine placed a hand on his shoulder. "And you wish to save her?" Anakin's eyes flickered. "More than anything." The Chancellor smiled, and the trap began to tighten. "It's only natural," he said, "to want to save those we love. Even the Jedi cannot deny that truth." Anakin said nothing, so Palpatine continued. "Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?" A pause. Anakin shook his head. "No." And the story began. Plagueis, a Sith Lord so powerful, he could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians, to create life, to prevent death, a master of unnatural preservation, a conqueror of fate. But he taught his apprentice everything he knew, Palpatine said, and then his apprentice killed him in his sleep. Anakin's breath caught. "Is it possible," he whispered, "to learn this power?" Palpatine smiled, not kindly now, but with depthless patience. "Not from a Jedi." And in that moment, something inside Anakin shifted. It was not yet betrayal, but it was hunger. The Council summoned him soon after. War was escalating. Grievous was on the move. The Republic strained, and the Jedi began to fear the Chancellor's grip. "He has held emergency power too long," Mace Windu said. "He must be watched." Yoda added, "And then the test came." They asked Anakin to spy on the man who trusted him, on the only one who called him son, on the only one who offered him hope. Anakin's voice trembled. "You want me to betray a friend?" Mace's reply was, without warmth, "We want you to serve the Republic." But Anakin was not blind. He felt the tension. He felt the fear. He felt that they did not trust him. Not fully. They needed him, but they did not believe in him. And Palpatine did. That night Padme held him in silence. The stars outside their window blinked like dying eyes. "What's happening to us?" she asked. He kissed her hand. "We're going to be all right," he said. But in his chest, the storm screamed. The dreams did not stop. He saw her dying again and again. He heard her call his name and could not reach her. The Force offered him no peace. Only the voice did. Only the promise. He would find a way. He would stop her death, even if it meant breaking everything he was sworn to protect. For love, for power, for fear, and somewhere in a place where future and past whisper across broken time. The Force cried out, balance tipped, and the Chosen One stepped closer to the edge. Then listen once more. The halls of power begin to rot from within, and the one wearing the crown begins to reveal his fangs. Chapter 6. The hollow crown of the Republic, the Chancellor's smile. The Jedi's suspicion the Republic did not fall in flames. It withered. Its foundations, once noble, became scaffolds for greed. Its voice, once united, splintered into shrieks of survival, and at its heart, a throne, not of gold, but of law, of emergency power, of fear disguised as order. Palpatine sat upon it, still called Chancellor, still draped in civility. But the threads of illusion were fraying, not by action, but by time. The war had become the excuse for permanence. The Senate grew silent. The people grew weary, and the Jedi began to see too late. They gathered in high chambers, among columns that had seen better centuries, and they spoke in caution. His grip does not loosen, said Mace Windu. Every victory grants him more. Command, Obi-Wan nodded, but his eyes were on Anakin. He trusts the Chancellor. Too much, Yoda muttered. They did not say it aloud, but it hung between them, a wound they feared to name. Anakin Skywalker was no longer a child, but neither was he theirs. He was a general in war, a blade in motion, and a being orbiting. Power with growing hunger, and that power now spoke to him as if father to son. Palpatine met with him in private, more often, more candidly. Behind chamber doors, beneath chandeliers that flickered like dying stars, the Chancellor spoke truths no Jedi dared utter. They do not understand you, he said. They are afraid of your strength, your potential. They talk of peace, while sending you to bleed. And Anakin listened, because the Jedi did fear him, and the Chancellor did not, because the Jedi offered silence, and Palpatine offered answers. The Council, sensing danger, reached out, not with trust, but with command. They summoned Anakin into their sacred circle, not to praise, not to honor, but to request. Betrayal. We wish you to report on the Chancellor, Windu said, to observe his dealings, his intentions, to spy. The word was not spoken, but it poisoned the air nonetheless. Anakin's face did not change, but something behind it shattered. You ask me to betray him, he said. We ask you to serve the Republic, Windu replied. Yoda's voice was softer. Difficult this task may be, but right it is. Anakin bowed, but inside he burned. For the first time he saw the Jedi not as guardians, but manipulators, not as mentors, but liars. They wanted his loyalty, not his trust. They wanted his power, not his will. And Palpatine wanted both. That night, the city below the temple glowed like a fire caught in crystal. Padme waited in shadow, her fingers resting on the curve of her womb. Anakin stood before the window, eyes locked on the skyline, unblinking. They asked, "You to betray him," she said softly. He nodded. "What will you do?" "I don't know," but he did. The choice had already begun to take root. The next day, Anakin returned to Palpatine's chamber, and the mask began to fall. Palpatine spoke of war, of disillusionment, of the weakness of the Jedi, of how they once were servants but had become hypocrites. They crave control, they speak of peace, but they cling to their power. Anakin listened. Then Palpatine's voice deepened, not in tone, but in meaning. You know they will never give you the rank of master. The words cut deeper than the Chancellor could have known, or perhaps knew exactly. Anakin's jaw tensed. It's not fair. No, Palpatine said. It is not. You are more powerful than any of them, and they fear that. Anakin looked away. They're cautious. They're blind. The silence that followed was thick with temptation, and then, softly, deliberately, I can teach you. Anakin turned back. Teach me what? Palpatine stepped closer. Everything, and with that, the final veil dropped. I know what you seek. I know why you tremble. I know who you dream of saving. And I know the way. Anakin froze. No lies, no riddles, just truth, naked and terrible. You're the Sith Lord, he whispered, and Palpatine smiled, not cruelly, not triumphantly, but with relief. I am. Anakin stepped back. His breath quickened. His mind spiraled. But even in that spiral, he did not ignite his blade. He did not strike. He did not scream. He hesitated, because the darkness did not come to him with fire. It came with understanding. I can save her, Anakin. I can stop the death you see, the pain you fear. Anakin's voice trembled. How? There are powers the Jedi forbid, secrets they hide. I can give them to you, if you let me. And the boy who had lost his mother, who had been denied love, who had been handed war instead of healing, said nothing. He turned and walked away, but the decision had already begun to form, like frost around a flame. He went to the council. He told them what he had learned. The Chancellor is the Sith Lord. They did not rejoice in his loyalty. They did not praise his courage. They said only this: stay behind. What if what you say is true? Then you will have earned our trust. Anakin's world collapsed in silence. Even now, they did not believe him. They would not let him come. They would not trust him. They would take his truth and leave him behind. Mace Windu gathered masters. They flew to the tower, and Anakin was left in a temple that no longer felt like home. He paced, he gasped, he trembled. The Force swirled around him in chaos, and in that chaos, one certainty took root. They will kill him. They won't let him speak. They'll destroy what I need, before I can save her. And when he could bear it no longer, he made his choice. He got into his ship. He flew toward the darkness, not to end it, but to claim it. Chapter 7. Darth Plagueis, the wise, the art of preventing death, the knight Anakin Skywalker, flew to the Chancellor's tower. He crossed a line the Jedi had buried for 1,000 years. He came not with wrath, not with clarity, but with fear. Fear that she would die. Fear that he would fail again. Fear that without this, there was nothing left. And the Force, ever watching, said nothing. The tower loomed above the city like a black crown. The sky trembled with sirens and war. The galaxy's pulse raced toward collapse, but inside, silence. Palpatine waited, not as Chancellor, not as friend, but as Sith. Anakin entered. His breath shook. His hands did not reach for his weapon. He looked not at a monster, but at the man who had promised him salvation. They've gone to kill you, Anakin said. Palpatine nodded. I know you're the Sith Lord. I am. No denial. No theatrics. Only acceptance. And then a gift. Sit, Anakin. Listen. Let me tell you what the Jedi never will. He spoke slowly, softly, as if reading from a sacred scroll buried. Beneath ash, long ago, there was a Sith named Darth Plagueis, a master of life itself. He learned how to stop death, how to mold the Force like clay, how to create and to preserve. Anakin's eyes narrowed. He could save the ones he loved. Palpatine's voice dropped to a whisper. Yes, the word rang louder than a scream. He taught his apprentice everything. But the apprentice, as Sith do, betrayed him, killed him in his sleep. Anakin leaned forward. Could this power still exist? It does, but only for those who dare claim it. Anakin felt his breath leave him. Teach me, Palpatine tilted his head. I will, but not while you are still there, slave. And there, it was, a line, a gate, a costot to gain this power to save her. Anakin would have to become something else, not Jedi, not soldier, not son, but Sith. He stood up, trembling, his blade still unlit at his side, his oath to the Jedi still fresh on his lips. His heart pulled in 2 dots, and then a ripple in the Force dot from the lift, the presence of Mace Windu and 3 Jedi Masters. They had come. Palpatine rose calmly, as if rehearsed. Whatever happens now, he said, remember, they do not come to arrest, they come to end me. Anakin said nothing. His soul began to fracture. Windu entered with purpose. Saber already drawn. You are under arrest, Chancellor. Palpatine said nothing. Then, in a movement as fluid as prophecy, he revealed the blade hidden beneath robes. Of Lord Crimson Fire, the scream of the Sith, the room ignited with chaos. 3 Jedi fell within seconds. Not in glory, in silence, in shock. Windu alone remained. He fought with fury, with skill, with righteousness. Palpatine countered with darkness, with rot, with power long concealed. And Anakin watched, helpless. 2 truths warred before him. The Jedi who never trusted him. The Sith who promised everything, and then the tipping point. Windu disarmed the Sith, held his blade to Palpatine's throat. He's too dangerous to be left alive. And with those words, the final wound tore open. Anakin cried out, he must stand trial. Windu did not answer, only raised his blade, and in that instant Anakin saw it. They will kill him, and with him. The only path to saving her. The choice became a scream. He ignited his saber, and struck. Lightning, fire, flesh, windu, flew from the tower, his scream lost in Coruscant's void. Silence followed. Palpatine rose, his face twisted, not with pain, but triumph. The mask was gone now. What remained was the Emperor. Thank you, my new apprentice. Anakin collapsed. What have I done? Palpatine knelt beside him, not as friend now, but as master. You are fulfilling your destiny. And then came the words that broke the sky. Kneel. And he did. Tears blurred his vision. I will do whatever you ask. Just help me save her. Palpatine's voice was smooth and ancient. To cheat death is a power only one has achieved. But together we will discover the secret. He touched Anakin's shoulder. Henceforth you shall be known as Darth Vader. And in the breath that followed, something died. Not his name, not yet, but the part of him that believed he could return. Outside, the galaxy turned red. Inside, the Republic fell, and the stars began to dim. Asterisk, asterisk, Chapter 8. The night of 1,000 blades, the temple burns, and the sky weeps. There are nights in the galaxy that echo forever. Nights when history is not written, but carved into the bones of the Force itself. This was one. The sky over Coruscant was quiet. The war raged elsewhere. The people slept. The temple stood in stillness, unaware that it had already been sentenced at its gates. He arrived, Anakin Skywalker, no longer Skywalker, clad in dark robes, eyes shadowed by purpose, and behind him legions. The 501 Saint. Clones, born to follow, their armor gleamed in temple light, blue-striped helmets, rifles steady. Their eyes were not filled with hatred, only duty. He gave the order, and the gates opened. The Jedi Temple, sacred vault of 1,000 years, became a battlefield in silence. Lightsabers met blasters, wisdom met war, peace met fire. The younglings died first. They heard footsteps in the dark, thought salvation had come. They ran to him. Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do? He said nothing. His blade ignited. The blue of the Jedi used to kill Jedi. He was not weeping, not yet. The archives fell next. Librarians who had preserved ancient knowledge for lifetimes, cut down by men with no names. Scrolls burned, holocrons shattered. The past screamed as the future devoured it, and Anakin Vader moved without pause. He did not look at their faces. He could not, because if he saw them, saw their eyes, he would remember who he was. So he kept walking, through flames, through bodies, through the last breath of an order that had raised him, but never saved him. Obi-Wan was not there, neither was Yoda. The temple, like the Republic, was left undefended when it mattered most. Mace was dead, the council scattered, and in the highest chamber of prophecy, the room that once debated his fate, Vader stood alone. He looked out over Coruscant, and for the first time, the city looked honest. Not a city of peace, but a monument of control. The Jedi had built their temple above the Senate. They had claimed the high ground, not just in war, but in belief. And now it was ending, in fire, in betrayal, in silence. Elsewhere, the command spread, across the stars, across 1,000 war fronts, 2 words, Order 66. The clones did not question. They did not hesitate. They turned, and Jedi across the galaxy fell, in jungles, in snowscapes, in skies, shot in the back by soldiers they once called brother, not in battle, in massacre. Key-Adi-Mundi, struck down mid-charge, Ayla gunned down before her saber could rise. Plo Koon burned alive in his cockpit, young, old, wounded, powerful, it did not matter. They were Jedi, and now they were traitors. The Jedi had been generals. Now they were ghosts. Back in the temple, the smoke had no scent to sacred, to ancient. The statues watched as their heirs died beneath them, and Anakin, still Anakin in form, though not in name, walked until his legs trembled, not from exhaustion, from silence. He found himself in the chamber of the young tiny sabers scattered. Across the floor, the children had not screamed, they had trusted. That was what hurt most. He sat alone amid the small bodies, and the Force did not comfort him. It recoiled. It watched him now, not with clarity, but with fear. For what is a chosen one who chooses ruin? What is balance if the scales are made of bone? Meanwhile, Sidious stood in the Senate, unscarred no longer, his face twisted now, not from lightning, but from revelation. He did not hide the Sith, he declared it. A powerful threat to the Republic has been revealed. The Jedi tried to overthrow the government. They have been dealt with. The Senate did not protest. They cheered, and with arms raised beneath the red-lit sky, he declared, The Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire for a safe and secure society. And the people applauded. Freedom died with thunderous approval. Back at the temple, Padam watched the flames. She heard whispers, reports, a Jedi did this. No, it was Skywalker. She refused to believe it. She felt her child kick. She whispered, "It's not true." But the Force said nothing, and Anakin was gone. What remained was something else. Not yet armor, not yet machine, but no longer a man who could return. Chapter 9. Ashes of the Code, the temple's silence. The master's grief, the temple no longer breathed. Its spires stood as bones upon the skyline. Its halls, emptied of footsteps, echoed with memory, and the Force, once alive in its stones, wept in silence. Obi-Wan returned to Coruscant, not in triumph, but in sorrow. He did not yet know the depth, not until he saw the smoke, not until he felt the absence. He landed alone. Yoda had already sensed the slaughter far away, among the dying roots of the galaxy. They met in secret, cloaked in alleys, hunted in their own homeworld. But even in hiding, they knew something unspeakable had been done. Still, Obi-Wan needed to see, so he returned. He walked through the gates he once trained beneath. The marble was scorched, the banners burned. The air was cold and wrong. He stepped across corpses, familiar robes, familiar faces, some with sabers still clutched, some too small to have ever lifted one. The younglings, the innocent. He fell to his knees. He could not cry. There were no tears sharp enough. This was not battle. This was execution, and in the Force a shadow coiled. He reached out and felt it, a wound, a name, Anakin, but not as he had known. Something had shifted, something had broken, something had chosen. He fled the temple, returned to Yoda. It was him, Obi-Wan whispered. He did this. Yoda's eyes did not close, did not widen. They simply held the weight. Believe it, I do. Obi-Wan's voice broke. Why? Yoda said nothing, because the answer was written across centuries, in rules too brittle, in prophecy too vague, in fear too deep. The Chosen One had not fulfilled the myth. He had become its correction, balance, demanded a purge. Padme waited. She had not heard from him, not in voice, not in touch, but the whispers had grown into screams. The Jedi were dead, and Anakin was gone. Not missing, changed. When Obi-Wan came to her, she saw it in his face. What happened? She asked. His voice was paper-thin. He killed them. Her hand went to her stomach. The unborn child, the only hope she still held. No, he wouldn't. Obi-Wan stepped closer. Padme, I saw the security recordings. She shook her head, not Anakin. But the Force did not deny it. She felt it even in her womb. A shadow over her future. A darkness pressed close, claiming something sacred. Obi-Wan's voice cracked. I need your help. Help. I must find him. In the archives of Sidious, the last truths began to lock into place. Anakin had been promised the power to stop death, but that promise was not yet kept. You said you could save her. Sidious smiled, not with joy, but with patience. Only together will we discover the path. Anakin's eyes flickered. You don't know. I have seen the way. But alone, I could not complete it. The pain became rage, and the rage became silence. He had burned a galaxy for her, but the knowledge still lay just beyond reach, so he obeyed, because he had to. because now he had no way back. The Jedi were dead. His hands had killed them. He stood in the wreckage of the Order, not as conqueror, but as consequence. And Padme still lived, but for how long? Obi-Wan found her ship, preparing to leave. He hid aboard it. He watched her from the shadows, her figure small, her heart breaking. She flew to him, to Mustafar, to the last world Anakin had been seen. A world of fire, a world that mirrored what he had become. Back in the temple, Yoda stood among ruins. He lit no candle. He spoke no prayer. He found the holocrons. The records he found the moment Anakin, no Vader, struck down the children. And for the first time in centuries, Yoda felt a grief too vast for words. He had lived through orders rising and falling. He had seen the Sith before, but never like this, never. From within, the Chosen One had become extinction, and prophecy had become a lie. In the ashes of the temple, the code was silent. There were no survivors left to recite it, no masters left to teach it, no Padawans left to learn, only ghosts, only fire, only fire, only the echo of footsteps that no longer walked in light. Asterisk, asterisk, Chapter 10. Mustafar, where love burns the final embrace before the fall. Asterisk, asterisk, Mustafa, R.A. World forged in grief. Its rivers are not of water, but molten fury. Its skies, not of stars, but smoke that never lifts. Here, the earth never sleeps. It writhes, it cries, it remembers. Anakin Skywalker stood upon its blackened cliffs, far from temples, far from vows, far from the man he once was. His eyes, once filled with starlight, now burned gold, the mark of one who had seen too much, and surrendered. He had done as commanded. The separatists were dead. The war, he believed, was over. He had bled the last leaders of the Confederacy, not in battle, but execution. They had bowed, they had begged, and he had silenced them, because he would bring peace. He would rule beside her, and no one would die again, not if he could stop it. Padme arrived alone. Her ship landed like a prayer over a tomb. She stepped out, her feet trembling on the volcanic soil. The heat clung to her skin. Her heart beat like a drum in mourning. And then she saw him, her husband, her secret, her ruin, Anakin. He turned, his face lit up, not with anger but relief. You came. She ran to him, arms open. They embraced. But the warmth between them was false. The heat was not love, it was war. I've heard terrible things, she said. He smiled. Gently, I've ended the war. She stepped back. You killed them. They were traitors. The Jedi betrayed us. I brought peace, Padme Tuc. She touched his face. This isn't peace. He grabbed her hand, not harshly, but firmly, with my new powers. I can protect you. We don't have to hide anymore. We can raise our child together. I can stop death, Padme. She shook her head. At what cost? He looked past her. They were going to take everything from me. I couldn't let that happen. I won't lose you. She stepped away, slowly. You're breaking my heart. His breath caught. You're going down a path I can't follow. I'm doing this for you, no Anakin. You're doing this for power. He stood silent. The wind howled. The lava roared. And then, the second betrayal. Obi-Wan appeared at the top of the ramp. He had hidden aboard. He emerged slowly, gaze locked on the man he had raised, the boy he had trained. Anakin, he said, and the fire exploded. You brought him here. Anakin's voice was no longer his own. He stepped away from Padme. The air between them became poison. You should turned her against me. No, Obi-Wan cried. You did that yourself. But Anakin no longer listened. Only the rage spoke. Now, the fear, the desperation, the voice of the Sith in his skull. He reached to the Force and Pobham choked. Not by blade, not by fist, by will. Her eyes widened in pain. Her hands grasped at nothing. Let her go. Obi-Wan charged. Anakin released her. She collapsed, and then the sabers ignited. Blue and blue, master and apprentice, brother and brother. The duel began. Not as combat, but as prophecy fulfilled. They fought through furnaces, on gantries above. Lakes of flame. The Force cracked around them. The world bled fire beneath every blow. You were the chosen one, Obi-Wan screamed. You were supposed to destroy the Sith, not join them. I brought peace. Anakin shouted. You brought death, Obi-Wan said. But neither stopped. They clashed as gods fallen from grace, not to save, but to survive. And the Force, now twisted, now watching, held its breath. The temple of Mustafar burned with every strike, and above the screams of lava and memory, there came a final cry. Pon LeMay lay near death aboard her ship. The droid could find no injury, no wound. She's dying, it said. We don't know why. But the Force knew it was not her body that failed. It was her spirit, her heart, broken by the man who had once saved her. And as her soul slipped away, her children stirred within her. One would bear hope, the other, legacy. On the edge of a bank above a lava flow, Obi-Wan leaped. I have the high ground. Don't try it. But Anakin, full of pride, full of fire, did. And in one swift motion, it ended. Blade against limb. 3 severed pieces. Anakin fell to the bank, screaming, crawling, his skin already burning, his eyes still defiant. I hate you. Obi-Wan looked down, tears falling. You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you. He could not strike the final blow, so he left him to the fire, to the prophecy, to the dark. Then behold the moment of rebirth, where flame becomes flesh, and a name becomes a wound. Chapter 11. The Iron Mask and the Burning Soul, the Death of Pad. The birth of Vader, the man who was Anakin Skywalker, lay beneath the fire. Not dead, but unmade. His skin blistered by betrayal, his own. His limbs carved from pride. His lungs scorched by the very heat that mirrored his heart. And the Force did not save him. It watched, and the galaxy tilted. On Mustafar the body burned. On Polis Massa the womb cried. Pom Amidala was dying. The medics said she was physically healthy. No injury, no trauma, no fault. But she was fading, because she had loved something now lost. Something she had once cradled beside the stars. Something that now bore a name spoken in fear. Obi-Wan held her hand. He could not save her. She looked up at him, breath thin, eyes wet, and whispered, "There is good in him." He wanted to believe her, but he had seen the temple. He had seen the children. Still, she believed, and belief is its own kind of power. Her body trembled one. Final time, and the droids declared it. She has lost the will to live, but not before she gave birth. A son, a daughter, twins, hidden even from prophecy. Luke, she said, and Leia. And then silence. Podmam, Amidala, queen, senator, lover, mother, passed not by wound, but by sorrow. Elsewhere, in a chamber cold as metal, lit by machines older than war. The shell of Anakin Skywalker was kept alive. Sidious stood beside him. The Emperor, no longer hiding, no longer smiling. Now a sculptor, gazing upon his most perfect ruin, begin reconstruction. They did not ask. He was rebuilt not as man, but as symbol. Black plates sealed to skinless flesh, tubing fed into broken lungs, metal bones wired into shattered joints, and at last, the face, the helmet, the iron mask. It descended over what was once a face and became the face, with a hiss that echoed like prophecy. The seal locked, and the breath began, mechanical, eternal, a sound the galaxy would never forget. Darth Vader rose. "Where is Podmum?" he asked. The voice once Anakin's now came through a machine, deeper, hollow, stripped of hope. Sidious turned. "It was time for the final cut. It seems in your anger, you killed her." Silence, a silence deeper than space. Then no, the metal groaned with pain. The chamber shook. He staggered forward, fists clenched, the scream tearing from within the mask. No, not for her, for himself. He had done everything. He had destroyed everyone. He had broken heaven and crushed hell, and she was still dead. All his promises had been ashdot, all his visions, hollow. There was no power that could turn back time. And now he was sealed, not in armor, in failure. The Emperor watched, not with pity but satisfaction, for now the chosen one was his, not just in body but in truth. Vader no longer had a past, only a future of command, of war, of silence. The galaxy would know peace, not through love but obedience, not through hope but fear. And the Jedi would never return. But deep in the stars, 2 children had been born. The last breath of Padme, the final heartbeat of Anakin. Leia, hidden among royalty. Luke, given to the sands that first birthed his father. They would not remember her face. They would not know the temple's light, but they would carry her voice and his fire. And one day, when the time was right, a son would return to the father, and the mask would crack, and behind it, something would stir. Not power, not anger, but the memory of love. Then walk with me beneath the shadow, for the galaxy has knelt, and the stars no longer speak freely. Chapter 12. The Empire's Shadow. The reign of Vader, the silence of hope, the sound of fear. Approximately 1,200 words years passed, not with joy, not with healing, but with silence. The Republic was gone, its name still spoken in forgotten corners, but its soul vanished. In its place, the Empire, a monument to control, a machine built not to serve, but to bind, and at its core stood Vader, not in throne rooms, not among diplomats, but aboard the black arrow of death that pierced the stars, the Star Destroyer. He spoke rarely. He obeyed only one, and when he arrived, hope fled. Planets fell not with war, but with surrender. People learned to silence their thoughts. To speak too loudly was to vanish, to resist was to die, because Vader would come. And Vader did not listen. He judged without pause. He moved like the edge of a falling moon, silent, inevitable, crushing, and the force that once swirled in balance now trembled in secret tombs. The Jedi who survived buried their names. Some fled to wastelands. Some cloaked themselves in madness. Some forgot the blade. Some forgot the self. But all of them remembered the scream. The children, the fire, and the mask. The high walls of the temple now belonged to the Emperor, its holocrons erased, its statues torn down, its voices silent. The old ways had died not in battle, but in betrayal, and Vader enforced the silence. He hunted not for glory, not for justice, but for completion. He had not killed them all, and that was weakness. The Inquisitors came next. Once Jedi, now broken tools, trained to smell the faintest ember of light, trained to drag survivors into dark halls where the truth was drowned in screams. They feared him, even as they served. For Vader was not a teacher. He was execution made flesh. He spoke with his saber, and they obeyed, because behind the mask was no mercy, no warmth, only the memory of love, twisted into a weapon in dreams. Vader still saw her, not as she died, but as she lived, laughing, holding him, believing. But even the dream began to rot. She turned from him. She wept. She whispered his name, the old name, and then she faded. And he awoke, alone every night. Every night, because even now, he did not know if it was true. Had he killed her? Had Sidious lied? But the dark side did not offer clarity, only silence. And he obeyed, because without obedience there was nothing left. The galaxy adapted. Factories replaced forests. Tyranny replaced trust. Stormtroopers replaced senators. The Senate itself remained, for now, as decoration. But power no longer came from voices. It came from fear, and fear had a name, not the Emperor, no Vader. Children whispered it in back alleys. Pilots cursed it in cold breath before capture. Prisoners dreamed of it, then woke screaming, because when the ship arrived, black V-shaped, humming like fate, it was already too late. But not all light died in distant moons. A rebellion stirred faint, scattered but stubborn. Leia Organa, heir to fire, began to speak in code. She wore white, but her heart burned red. She smiled with diplomacy, but carried a blade of defiance in her gaze. She did not know her father, not the real one, only the man who raised her. But something in her remembered the courage, the voice, the refusal to kneel, and Luke grew in the sand, unaware, unawakened, a boy beneath twin suns, dreaming of flight. But the Force watched, patient, waiting, because destiny is not undone, only delayed. And Vader, he stood before his master, silent, motionless, but inside, fragments stirred every time a Jedi screamed, every time a name was erased, every time another world bent the knee. He wondered, is this peace? Is this order? Is this what she would have wanted? But the voice of Sidious was louder. He whispered of enemies, of plots, of betrayal, and Vader listened, because silence was easier than memory, and pain was safer than hope. So the galaxy darkened, not all at once, but day by day, until stars learned to blink less brightly, and children learned not to ask too many questions, and planets learned not to pray too loudly, because in the heart of the Empire, the man in the mask still breathed, and with every breath, the dream of Anakin Skywalker drifted further into shadow. Then let us return to the dust, where the sun sets twice, and fate sleeps in the skin of a boy. Chapter 13. The Boy Beneath. Twin suns, the silence before the storm. Asterisk, asterisk. There is a world at the edge of everything. Tatooine. A ball of dust and silence. A graveyard for dreams. A place forgotten by choice, by empire, by memory. But the Force never forgets. It watches, even here, especially here, for hidden among the heat and hunger, among the sandstorms and slave markets, is a boy. He is not marked, he is not crowned, he is not chosen. Not yet. He is Luke. Luke Skywalker. He knows only evaporators and chores. He knows only suns that never let go. He knows nothing of temples or clones or fire. But the blood in his veins remembers. His hands may lift tools, but his spirit stirs toward stars, and his dreams are not small. He lives with Owen and Biru. They are kind in their silence, strict in their fear. They know who he is, they know what he could become, and so they keep him grounded, keep him safe, keep him ignorant. But destiny is not a prisoner. It grows like a storm behind the horizon, and soon it would wake every night. Luke walks to the edge of the homestead. He watches the twin suns descend. One slow, one slower. Their dying light bathes his face. He does not know why, but it hurts, not in pain, in longing, as if he was meant to be somewhere else, as if the stars were whispering something forgotten. He squints into the sky, and sometimes he thinks he sees something there, a shape, a shadow, a dream not yet born. Elsewhere, in the canyon beyond light, a figure watches him from afar, an old man, worn, hollow, waiting. Obi-1 Kenobi. But that is not the name he uses anymore. Now he is only Ben, a hermit, a myth. He does not speak of the past. He does not wield his blade, but his ears never sleep, and his eyes never leave the boy, because Obi-Wan made a vow to Yoda, to Padme, to the Force, that if there was any hope left, it lay in him, and Obi-Wan would not fail again. He speaks to no one, except the wind, and a voice that comes at night. From memory, you were my brother, Anakin. The words echo inside his cave. He repeats them, sometimes not to remember, but to atone. He watches Luke grow. From child to youth, he sees the spark. The same spark he once saw in another. The same fire, but quieter, untouched, for now in the stars. Above, the Empire grows heavier. Stormtroopers land even here, in this forgotten dust bowl. They search for fugitives, for stolen plans, for secrets. And fate begins to stir. Leia Organa, now senator, now rebel, has intercepted a whisper, a new weapon, a station, vast as a moon, a terror, unlike any before. The Death Star she flees, carrying the plans, and destiny collides with itself once more, for she does not flee alone. With her is a droid, and with the droid is the future. It will fall into the hands of a boy, in the desert, under the suns, and the Force will awaken. Vader feels it in the cold void of hyperspace. Aboard the Executor, he turns, a shiver in the current. A presence, not known, but familiar. He does not speak, he only breathes, and with each breath the galaxy tilts, because something once dead has begun to stir, and the sun he does not know is dreaming. Luke wakes, not to the sound of prophecy, to engines, to arguments, to something small, a droid rolling, beeping, and everything begins to fracture. The past is rising, the future is waiting, and the present is no longer safe. The Force, long buried in sand, begins to hum beneath his feet, and above him, in orbits unseen, a mask turns toward him. Then follow me into the quickening dawn, where blood remembers, and the Force stirs from sleep. Chapter 14. The fire reignites, The sun awakens, the path begins. Where the father ended, asterisk, asterisk, the fire had never truly died, only buried, only waiting. Now it stirs, it breathes, and it chooses once more. Luke Skywalker chased a droid across the sands, a simple act. But nothing in the galaxy is simple, not when destiny watches. R2-D2 carried more than a message. He carried memory, a fragment of a ghost, a cry for help sent from a daughter to a man long thought dead. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. The words echoed not in circuits, but in the Force itself. And so, the circle began to close. Luke followed the droid to the edges of the desert, past the places his uncle warned him from, and there they found him, old Ben, the hermit, the man who watched from the cliffs. He revealed his name, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and with it, the weight of history fell. They sat in the old man's cave. Luke listened to a voice that once guided armies, to a hand that once trained gods. Obi-Wan spoke not of glory, but of wounds, of a galaxy that had forgotten its soul, of a weapon, your father's lightsaber, of a war, the Clone Wars, of a name, Anakin Skywalker. And he lied, not to deceive, to protect. He was a great pilot, a good friend. He was betrayed and murdered by a pupil of mine, Darth Vader. Luke's eyes widened, but he did not know the whole, not yet. The truth still lay hidden like a sun behind eclipse. The message from Leia burned in their hands, a plea to Alderaan, a chance to resist, and the Empire was already searching. Stormtroopers had scorched the had found the droid's trail, and when Luke returned home, the fire had already come. His uncle, his aunt, burned, not by war, by order, by fear, and in the ashes. Luke made his choice. He would not stay, he would not run, he would fight, not for revenge, but because something ancient had awakened in his bones. And it had a name. Hope. OBI-1 saw it. The spark, he had seen it before, and it broke his heart. But this time, he would not fail. This time, he would guide, not control. This time, he would let the Force decide. They found a smuggler, a ship, and fled the desert. But the Empire had already reached further than light. Was gone, erased. Not by battle, by demonstration. The Death Star, no longer rumor, had spoken. A planet, silenced, beneath its shadow. The stars wept, and Vader stood watching, not with pleasure, not with anger, only silence, because even now, he did not feel joy, only necessity, only obedience. But something brushed against him, a flicker, a thread, a presence familiar. He turned to the Emperor. There is a disturbance in the Force. Yes, Sidious hissed. The son of Skywalker must not become a Jedi. Leave him to me, Vader said, and the shadow lengthened. Luke stepped aboard the station, not as warrior, as boy, but the Force whispered to him now in corridors. In moments of stillness, it sang in his blood. Obi-Wan walked beside him, older, quieter, still broken. But when he looked at Luke, he saw something stronger than memory. He saw balance. And then the hallway, the breathing, the mask. Vader.Obi-1 stepped forward, not with hate, with peace. I've been waiting for you, Vader. The blades ignited, blue and red. Past and present, teacher and fallen. They clashed, and Luke watched. They fought as memories do, not to win, but to conclude. Obi-1 did not seek victory. He sought release. He looked into the mask and saw nothing of Anakin, only shadow. And so, when the moment came, he raised his blade and lowered it. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Vader did not hesitate. The saber cut through robe and memory. The body fell, the spirit vanished, and Luke screamed. But the Force whispered, "He's not gone." They escaped barely. The plans were safe. Leia mourned her world. Luke mourned his teacher. The rebellion stirred to life, and the stars began to shimmer again, because the boy beneath twin suns had begun to awaken far away in the throne room of cold silence. The Emperor turned toward the void. "The boy lives." Vader said nothing, but deep inside, a sound, a breath, a name long buried. Luke, and for the first time in years, Darth. Vader wondered what still remained. Chapter 15. The Empire Strikes. The father hears the son becomes a threat. Asterisk, asterisk. The rebellion was no longer a whisper. It had teeth, it had fire, and it had Skywalker. Luke, still learning, still stumbling, became a name that sparked breath in the lungs of slaves, and fire in the hearts of the broken. He led no armies yet, but he flew, and in battle he moved with a purpose that was not his own. The Force had begun to guide him, not fully, not safely, but undeniably. Yavin, the Death Star. The shot. One chance, a whisper from the void, trust the Force, and then fire. The station fell. The Emperor felt it. Millions gone, an entire weapon undone by a single rebel. But Vader felt something deeper. In the moment before detonation, as his own ship spiraled away, he felt him, the pilot, not just presence, blood, and though the explosion was vast, the feeling remained, as if something once lost had looked at him through the Force itself. He said nothing, but inside the mask, inside the ruin, the man who once dreamed heard the name whispered again, Luke, and this time it did not fade. It stayed, a thorn beneath the armor, a thread through the dark, and Vader began to search, not for the rebellion. For him, he did not tell the Emperor, not yet, because somewhere inside, beneath metal, beneath orders, he wanted to see the boy, to know the truth. Could it be? Could Padme's child have lived? Could the light have survived? And if so, was it his to destroy or his to save? The Emperor watched him from the shadows. He knew what Vader did not say. He saw the weight behind his silence. He smiled. We must find this boy before the Jedi rises again. Vader bowed, but deep within him, the command twisted, because he no longer moved only as servant. He now moved as father. Luke, unaware, trained in fragments, a blade gifted by a ghost, a few teachings, no temple, no council, no archives, only instinct, only dreams, and in the dreams, a voice. Obi-1. Guiding, warning. The past, speaking through death. You will go to the Dagobah system. There you will learn from Yoda. The name meant nothing, but the Force stirred at its sound. Luke obeyed, because something deep within him, old as the stars, was ready to awaken. But before he could go, Hoth. Ice, the rebellion, found shelter. But the Empire was already hunting. Vader scoured the galaxy, not with armies, but obsession. He sought a presence. He searched starfields for a shadow, and when he felt it, the flicker, the echo, he knew, he is here. No more hesitation, no more silence, not for the rebellion, for the boy, The invasion began, not with diplomacy, with thunder. Snow turned red, caves collapsed, pilots fell, and Luke, wounded, pursued, escaped only by breath and blood. Leia fled, Han fled, the base crumbled, but Vader did not care. They were not the target, only the name, only the sun, only Skywalker. Luke flew toward Dagobah, toward the swamp, toward a master long buried in sorrow, and Vader watched the stars, not as a warlord, not as a Sith, but as a man who once held a child in dream, who now hunted him in nightmare, and still, he did not know, would he raise the saber or the hand. And if the boy looked into the mask, would he see his father or his executioner? The Force did not answer, because the time had not yet come, but soon it would. And when it did, galaxies would fall silent to listen chapter and unbless. And the shadow in the cave, the master who waited, the fear that spoke asterisk, there are places. The galaxy has forgotten. Dagobah is one dot. No cities, no signals, no stars visible from its floor. Only swamp, only rot, only the slow breath of an ancient wound. But beneath its vines and still water, the Force hums, not bright, not dark. Both are alive in every root, every insect, every silence between. Thunder dot here, Yoda waited, the last of the old dot, once general, once grandmaster. Now hermit, he did not speak to the galaxy any more. He listened to death, to the pulse of old mistakes, to the child the Force had promised. And when Luke Skywalker crashed into the mud, the wait ended. The boy stumbled, wet, angry, eager. Yoda watched, cloaked in mischief. He tested him, not with trials, with questions, with silence, with annoyance. Luke failed them all, impatient, reckless, hungry for power, much like another Yoda once knew. But behind the boy's eyes, there was love, there was pain, there was a spark. And so the old master revealed himself. I am Yoda. Luke gasped. He did not see a warrior. He saw age, but wisdom wears many. Masks training began, not with sabers, with burdens, with breath, with balance. The swamp became the trial. Each step through the mud, a confrontation with self. Each stone lifted, a question. What is the Force? Luke struggled. He wanted speed, victory, control. But Yoda gave him riddles. Luminous beings, are we not this crude matter? Adventure, hey, excitement. Hey, a Jedi craves not these things. And then, one day, the cave. Yoda pointed. Only what you take with you. Luke stepped inside. The air changed, thicker, heavier. The dark side lived here, not as enemy, but reflection. Inside the cave, Luke found Vader, breathing, waiting. They clashed. A blade, a strike, a head severed. The helmet rolled. It cracked inside Luke's own face. He stared at it, and the cave whispered, "This is your path. This is your shadow. This is what you could become." Luke stumbled out. Breathless, Yoda said, "Nothing." Because truth cannot be taught, only revealed. Luke's fear was not Vader. It was himself, because the same blood flowed through them. The same pain, the same hunger, and the line between savior and tyrant is thinner than a whisper. Elsewhere, Vader searched. He did not know of Dagobah H. Could not the Force hid it? But in his dreams, he saw trees. He saw his son. He saw a blade and a choice, one that had not yet come. And he remembered a fire, scream, and a woman who had once said, "There is good in him." He turned to the stars, not as conqueror, as question, what is he becoming, and what must I become to meet him? The galaxy moved forward. The rebellion bled. The empire hunted. But above it all, the force held its breath, because the boy had entered the cave, and the next time he faced the mask, it would not be a vision, it would be fate. Asterisk, Chapter 17. The Trap at Bespin. The father revealed the blade, the fall, the truth without mercy. Asterisk, asterisk. The galaxy did not pause for prophecy. It marched on with fleets, with betrayals, with carbonite. The empire hunted not just rebels now, but bait. Leah Hun, CHEWBACCA. And Vader. He no longer chased war, he chased one thing, Luke. The boy had become the axis of his silence, the shape of his dreams, the echo in every breath. And so he set the trap. Not on the battlefield, on Bespin, a city, in the clouds, beautiful, neutral, unarmed. It would become a shrine of pain, because the Force had whispered to Vader in fragments, "He is coming, he will face you. And you must choose." Lando Calrissian greeted them with smiles, but his corridors led to darkness. Leia and Han were taken, frozen, tested, and in that frozen breath of agony, Vader waited far away. In the Dagobah swamp, Luke dreamed. He saw pain. He saw her, Leia, screaming Dot. He saw Han falling into shadow. He saw the trap, and against Yoda's pleas, he left. He was not ready. But destiny does not wait for readiness, only courage and tragedy. Luke entered the city, not with soldiers, alone drawn like a star falling toward its end. The halls were silent, the doors opened one by one, not at his hand, but by fate. And then, he was there, Vader, motionless, waiting. The lightsabers ignited, blue, red dot, and the Force held its breath again. They clashed, not as equals, as shadow and spark. Luke fought with fire, Vader with stillness. Every blow from Luke was desperation. Every blow from Vader was teaching. You have learned much, young one. You'll find I'm full of surprises. But Vader was not seeking surprise. He was testing, not his strength, his son's. The duel moved through the city, from chambers of steel to bridges of wind. Luke was struck, cornered, broken, and yet he refused to kneel. Vader could have killed him, but that was never the goal. He was not here to end the boy. He was here to claim him. The Emperor had spoken. If he could be turned, he would become a powerful ally. But Vader, he had begun to imagine something else. Together, we could destroy the Emperor. We could end this. We could rule the galaxy. As father and son, it was not mercy, it was ambition. Twisted love, a plea spoken through a mask. But Luke did not understand. Not yet. The battle reached its peak. Vader's blade found Luke's wrist, and the saber, the gift of Obi-Wan, fell into the void. Luke screamed, fell to his knees, and then the silence. "You are beaten," Vader said. "It is useless to resist." Luke gritted his teeth. "I'll never join you." There was a pause, a sacred moment, and then the voice, low, slow, like the ground opening beneath the sky. "Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father." "He told me enough," Luke spat. "He told me you killed him." A longer silence than the truth. "No, I am your father." The galaxy shifted, the air stilled, and the Force itself wept. No. Luke whispered. It was not refusal. It was collapse. No. That's not true. That's impossible. Search your feelings. You know it to be true. And he did. Because the Force cannot lie. And in that moment, all roads led back to the cave, to the dreams, to the blade. The shadow had always been his own. Vader stepped closer. Join me. Together we can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy. Father to son, master to heir, darkness to light. But Luke, broken, bleeding, alone, made the only choice he could. He let go. He fell into the abyss, into the wind, into the future. Because death was better than becoming him. He survived, barely caught by fate, clutched by allies, held by hope. But he was no longer a boy. He was no longer unknowing. The truth had been spoken, and it could never be undone. In the hangar of the Star Destroyer, Vader stood still. He reached with the Force, not to harm, to speak. Luke heard it, across space, across pain, a voice not of war, but of regret, and he turned away, because he had seen the mask, and now he knew. His greatest enemy was his blood. Chapter 18. The Rise of the Jedi, the Fall of the Masks, the Redemption, the Fire. The prophecy fulfilled. Years passed. Not many, but enough. Luke had changed, no longer the boy who gazed at twin suns. No longer the student who fled the cave. He had seen too much, felt too much. He had lost, and through that loss, he had grown. He returned to Dagobah once more, not as learner, as Jedi Yoda. Waited, smaller, slower, the weight of 900 years behind his eyes. He welcomed Luke, not with pride, with sorrow. Soon will I rest. Yes, forever sleep, Master. Yoda, is Vader my father? Yoda closed his eyes. Your father, he is. Told you, did he? Luke nodded. I must face him. Yoda sighed. Then complete your training. You will. Confront him, you must. And with that, the Master faded into the Force, peaceful, forgiven, and alone once more. Luke turned toward destiny. The rebellion had grown bold. It moved against the Empire. One final strike, the second Death Star. Incomplete, but alive. Palpatine himself waited upon it. A trap for the fleet, for the Jedi, for Luke. He surrendered. Willingly let himself be taken to the throne room, where the mask waited, and beyond it, the master of all lies. The Emperor smiled. Your hate has made you powerful. Luke stood between them. Vader on one side, the broken man. Sidious on the other, the wound that never healed. They offered him power. They showed him pain. They revealed the rebellion's suffering, the fleet dying in orbit, his friends cornered on the forest moon, all to ignite rage. And for a moment, it worked. Luke struck, blade to blade. Father and son clashed, not as strangers, but as mirrors. The duel raged. Luke stronger now, faster, guided by love. But love, when threatened, becomes fire. And Vader spoke not of the galaxy. He spoke of Leia. If you will not turn to the dark side, perhaps she will. And the fire broke free. Luke roared. He attacked with fury. Each strike thundered with desperation, until at last Vader fell, his hands severed. Sparks flew out the same hand Luke had lost, and he looked down at the metal dot at himself. And in that moment he saw it. The path, the cliff, the choice to strike, would be to become. And Luke stepped back, Saber deactivated. I am a Jedi like my father. Before me. The words echoed, not in defiance, in completion, and the Emperor laughed, then screamed. So be it. Jedi, lightning, R-C-E-D, raw hatred, the dark side, unmasked. Luke cried out, writhing, dying, dolling, calling not to the rebellion, not to the Force, to him, his father, to the soul behind the machine. Father, please. And in that moment, Vader looked, not as weapon, as man. He saw the Emperor, he saw his son, and something ancient. Awakened, not power, love, not domination, devotion. He turned, he lifted. The Emperor. Lightning burned through him. Circuits shattered, flesh seared, the breath faltered, and with a final cry, Sidious was cast into the abyss. The dark side screamed and fell silent. Vader collapsed. Luke knelt beside him, removed the mask, not to reveal a monster, to reveal a man, pale, broken tears in his eyes. Let me look on you with my own eyes. Luke nodded. You were right. You were right about me. Tell your sister. You were right. And then, peace. Anakin Skywalker, fallen Jedi, broken father, chosen one, died, not with hate, but with balance. The prophecy fulfilled, not through might, through love. Through the sun, the Death Star fell. The rebellion rose, and in the stars, freedom returned. But Luke did not celebrate. He burned the armor, not as a funeral, as a release, an offering, a letting go later that night. As the galaxy danced in flame and joy, Luke stood alone and saw them. Yoda, Obi-Wan, and at last, Anakin. As Vader, as the man he once was, smiling, forgiven, whole, Luke bowed. The past was at peace, and the future was his.